Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy, and I want to talk about Matthew Perry. Okay, so if you don't know, Matthew Perry is Chandler Bing from Friends, and he just died. He died at 54 years old. 54 years old. That's 1 year older than me. Matthew Perry was exactly 1 year older than me. I think if I passed, people would be surprised. They'd be like, "Oh, wait, what? That was not due, right?" Not like if President Biden or if President Donald Trump died tomorrow, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, okay, they were 80, yeah, sure, of course, it's expected." Right? Like nobody would be surprised, right? So so he was of an age where passing was very unusual, right? So let's talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. So Vivek Ramaswamy has a heavy lift. He has to beat President Donald Trump. Does he have to beat President Biden? It's hard for me to tell. I got really worried. I had a viewer who literally told me why they were supporting President Biden, and I was shocked. Right, this person was considered themselves to be progressive, and I considered themselves to be progressive until they told me they were going to vote for President Biden. But this person, I thought they cared about people of color. I thought they cared about inclusivity. I thought they cared about representation for marginalized groups. And if you care about representation for marginalized groups, if you care about people of color, you absolutely cannot vote to bolster and make a bulwark of the Ward Cleaver wall. You cannot, if you claim to be progressive, if you care about people of color, if you care about marginalized groups, you cannot vote for President Biden, right? And so it is frightening to me that there are progressives, there are regressives who call themselves progressive. And that's what it is, right? I think there's a lot of people who think they're progressive, but their actions are incredibly regressive, right? It's a real question on how much time Vivek Ramaswamy should spend trying to defeat President Biden, because he's doing a real good job of telling people, I am the worst president this country has ever had. I'm convinced now. I definitely think President Biden is the worst president this country has ever had. And the reason why, the number one reason is 3 years in, we're in 2 wars. America's in 2 wars. Dollars on the ground, no boots on the ground. Dollars on the ground, we're in 2 wars, and there's open discussion in the mainstream media when World War III will break out. That is horrendous. No president ever has put us on the verge of a third world war, right? Like others, got us into a little trouble right here and there, whatever. Nobody put us on the brink of World War III the way President Joseph Biden's counter this has done, right? And trust and believe, the wars were involved. That's why the economy's in crap, right? So the reality is, if you just find your 2, go boots on the ground in 2 different wars, end those wars in a week each, everything will be fine, right? But President Biden cannot muster even an ounce of courage, and that means everything's broke. The American dream is dead. The economy's broken, and we all living on the a centimeter away from World War III, right? Vivek Ramaswamy has to beat Donald Trump. How do you do it? Well, you learn from Matthew Perry's death, okay? Why did Matthew Perry die? I have an opinion on this, and I'm going to share it with you right now. Matthew Perry was an incredibly sad man. I know this because I followed his career. I watched him on Friends, just like you did, right? But I watched his other work, right? His work on Go On, where he joined a grieving therapy group. And I think he joined this show because he genuinely believed in therapy. He went to therapy twice a week for 30 years, right? That is an industry that needs to be shut down by Vivek Ramaswamy. Matthew Perry had all the money in the world. He had a conga line of dollars coming in, and he was able to buy the very best psychologists that money could buy. And they kept him on a couch twice a week for 30 years and did nothing for him. And in my humble opinion, that entire industry should be shut down by Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek should say, listen, Matthew Perry is a template for what has become of American modern psychology, okay? You put your money up. The psychologist takes your money, asks you questions about your mother, and then sends you home, right? And then rinse and repeat. And the reality is the psychology industry, in my humble opinion, the entire industry should be shut down by Vivek Ramaswamy. And the reason he should do it is, one, to spare Americans from being robbed of, Matthew Perry did the work, went twice a week for 30 years. Okay? They did nothing for him. They took hundreds of dollars an hour, right? They asked him questions about his mom. They did nothing. And he died, in my humble opinion, because that entire industry failed him. He was engaged. He was doing the work. They took his money and they let him die, right? And for that reason, in my humble opinion, the entire industry of psychology should be shut down day one, right, by Vivek Ramaswamy. You should just say, day one of the Vivek Ramaswamy 2024 U.S. presidential period, right, between 2024 and 2028, on day one, I will make it against the law for any psychologist to charge money for their specific product, right? And the reason why is you can buy the best and you can engage with them and do everything they ask for 30 years and you'll end up dead. like Matthew Perry, right? And I honestly think the reason why, of course, he's one example, but I believe he represents a pattern. And I'm not telling you I think he represents a pattern. I'm telling you I'm incredibly blessed. I'm not blessed. You could do the same thing, right? I'm connected to my public libraries, right? So I can get audiobooks for free. And I've listened to no less than 50 Hollywood autobiographies. 50 of them. And they are all the same. They are all Hollywood stars, pay hundreds of dollars, all go to therapy. None of them ever solve a single problem. None of them, right? Ron Perlman, Felicia Day, the main lady from Gilmore Girls, on and on and on and on and on, autobiography after autobiography after autobiography. They don't even expect it to work, right? Like many of them, they just give up, right? And the reality is, to me, snake oil is a thing, right? And and America came along and said, you're not allowed to sell snake oil, right? And so the reality is, day one, Vivek Ramaswamy should say, I will go through the proper channels and I will work through Congress and Senate a bill to completely rid America of the entire industry of psychology. Now, the reality is, that I'm all for working through the process, right? If psychology can come forward and say, hey, we're going to fix things. We're going to actually make it so that we demonstrate effectiveness. We're going to actually, establish a standard of quality, right? We're going to engage the American people in creating a product that's actually useful. Then, okay, under the sword of Damocles, maybe that industry gets a champion who stands up and says, you guys are right. Right? Domino's did it. Domino's, I don't know if you remember this. Domino's came out and said, our pizza sucks. Said it nationally. Paid millions of dollars to literally tell the American people, we realize our pizza sucks and we're going to fix it. Right? So if the psychology industry can have a Domino's moment, right, when Vivek announces, I'm using the Senate and the Congress to make your entire industry illegal, right? Because you guys have produced nothing. Because Matthew Perry paid you for 30 years and you let him die, right? I think this would be strong. Now, why should Vivek do it? One, because it's needed. Two, the Republicans are going to love it. Republicans despise psychologists. Despise them to the last right now. I should say to the last. The macro level of Republicans despise the macro level of psychologists. 51% of Republicans definitely despise 51% of psychologists, right? And really despise the industry. So the Republicans will eat it up. Red meat for the base, baby. That's what you do. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. That's what Vivek Ramaswamy should do. What do you think Vivek Ramaswamy should do? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.